Does race have a place in university admissions? It's a big and divisive question.
There's nothing wrong with truly believing in equality. We do not believe that race or gender should help or hurt anyone.
A question our country has been working to answer for decades, in admissions offices and in the courts.
Colleges and universities have long been addressing questions surrounding race and ethnicity. The heightened attention to these issues over the past few months reminds us this is ongoing importance.
I am here today to get in the way of the hate, the prejudice, the discrimination, and the violence that is spreading through our country.
The focus has changed since the days of segregation, but the debate lives on.
Race is an odious classification, and it really doesn't matter if your results are small. That sort of indicates you didn't have to do it in the first place.
The issue of race and university admissions is probably the most polarizing and high-profile area of the law that any of us have looked at over the last, I'd say, 25 years.
So it's a typical morning here at Georgetown Law School as I'm reading through these files, and here are two that jump out at me.
44% of four-year schools consider race in admissions, according to an annual survey by the National Association for College Admission Counseling. The more selective the school, the more likely that race is a factor, one element among many that schools can use.
You don't simply look and say, here's your race, there's your decision.
Andrew Kornblatt, Dean of Admissions at Georgetown University's Law School, has been making those decisions for 35 years.
The best part of what I do, on my best moment, I feel like I'm sort of a dream giver. It's hard to have this conversation without sort of generalizing, students, African Americans, people who agree, people who disagree. These are individual people who need to be looked at individually and looked at through the lens of what they are offering.
He expects to evaluate about 9,000 applicants this year, looking for the right mix of people to fill just 575 spots.
We pay close attention to geography, we pay close attention to age. Could have to do with political thought. Clearly one of the most important and front and center are race and ethnicity, but that's not the only thing that matters to us.
It was President Kennedy who first talked about affirmative action. And he said, we shall take affirmative action to guarantee that people are treated without regard to race. I emphasize that, without regard to race. That was the original intent of affirmative action.
Jennifer Gratz is working to end policies like Georgetown's. She sued the University of Michigan in 1997 and won at the United States Supreme Court, ending a system that gave applicants points based on race. Now she works as an activist to continue the fight.
Here we are today where I've been labeled an anti-affirmative action activist, if you will, and I'm fighting for exactly that, without regard to race. And so at some point, that language was flipped on its head and morphed into something that it wasn't intended to be.
I'm very, very humbled and grateful that the justices of the Supreme Court have decided to hear my case again today.
Today, another plaintiff is before the U.S. Supreme Court pushing for change. Her case is called Fisher versus University of Texas. And in December, it was argued before the justices for a second time. Once again, Abigail Fisher's case could end the use of race in admissions at the University of Texas and perhaps nationwide.
It's Fisher versus educational institutions. It's not just UT. Everybody who does what I do for a living is watching this extremely carefully. Whatever that ruling is, it will impact all of us.